Ready. Play.
Hey guys, so this is going to be another recording for the match of the year. Well, actually, probably the first one you see, or maybe the second one, since it's the 7th on the ATP list.
接下来，我们热烈欢迎本次大赛的2号种子梅杰夫。
I would have it higher up. But anyway, hello Mario. And there was a bit of controversy regarding this choice, actually, because we had this Twitter space with John and Jack where we are creating the short list for the matches that should be included in the top 7 for Talking Tennis. And I guess it wasn't as much of a controversy between us three whether to include Sinner Medvedev at all. It also wasn't, whether to include it in like the top 15 or something. It was a controversy between us three, and especially between John and me, whether to include it in the top 7. But then when we posted a poll relating to this, and actually the viewers, the audience decided that they want this and Rublev Rune instead of Struff Alcaraz, that's when some people from the Talking Tennis team came up with this idea that actually they would rather see Sinner Medvedev in Vienna here. So Mario, which of the 3 Sinner Medvedev matches this year do you think belongs on a list like this? I mean, we're going to be talking about Beijing anyway. Your answer isn't going to change it. But if you had, the 3 later in the year, of course, they played 5 times as a whole this year. But the first 2, I don't think were really a consideration. But when it comes to the 3 that came later in the year, so Vienna, Beijing, and ATP finals, we were also we are considering them all really, but decided on Beijing. So yeah, is that the right call? Is it just fine? Are they all at the same level?
I have to say that for me it depends a lot on what criteria you're going to use, because for sure, I mean, for talking about the scoreline drama, probably Vienna was maybe more interesting than the Beijing one, for example, because we had no breaks, and we had just a straight sets win for Sinner, even if it was 2 tiebreaks. So it still was really a very close one, even if if what you're going to choose is especially based on that kind of drama scoreline wise, and probably Vienna gave us best among the 5 matches that Sinner and Medvedev have played. Quality-wise, I feel like Beijing was good. Was a good match. In the end, I feel that we can be okay with this choice, even because there's quite much to talk about this match in an episode like this we are doing today, because it's not only about the match in itself, like maybe in Vienna, let's say, but there's much of a storyline also because of what the head-to-head was looking like and the kind of week Sinner was having. In my opinion, there probably the story is even better for this one, because talking about considering Vienna, for example, probably that one, it was, I don't want to say just the match, But let's say that Sinner didn't get into that one with the same kind of pressure, for example, in which he was in Beijing. I mean, still the head-to-head was 1-6 going back, before the Vienna final, but still having won the title in Beijing, it still was. I don't know. I feel that we are okay, because probably could have gone either way. Let's say still would have been much to talk. So I'm okay with the choice, and happy to talk and to have a throwback to this match.
Yeah, so to sort of explain my reasoning, because I was the biggest advocate for it, yeah, I just believe that quality is literally the same, Vienna, Beijing. I don't think that a 3-set match necessarily has to be higher up than a 2-set match. Not that I sort of included it as a potential factor, but like it wasn't a disqualifying thing for me. And at the same time, I just feel like the storyline here, it's not that the storyline plays the main part, but it is there as an important thing to consider. Whereas some of the other matches that like people were posing to me were like mostly story, but no actual. Oh, for example, good one is Świątek Goff. We chatted about putting
The
this
one
on
which
the
was
match of the list.
not
Cincy,
one.
yes, and I feel like that's mostly storyline, but there
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
backstage, there's a very decent match, but nothing exceptional. Whereas
Yeah, there
here we have
should
the
be
combination
a
of the
balance
two.
between the two things. A good
Yeah,
quality match, and also with a good storyline, because both things, in my opinion, are, let's say, equally important probably in an episode like this one.
yeah, and
It's
yeah,
was thinking the same
I
about
think it's absolutely fine. Yeah.
I know that there was a poll. Rublev Rune won the poll, and probably that one was one like similar to the Swiatek Goff. You were saying the
A
storyline is
little
big,
bit, yeah.
and the storyline is big, of course. But by the way, we are doing another match today, so
Yeah, we gave people the right to vote. They did what they had to do. Democracy. I guess that's it really. So yeah, let's talk
For
about
example,
the
Alcaraz
head-to-head.
Struff. I'm sure that if Struff won, probably maybe the audience would have. That was a match in which, in my opinion, the result could have, made a different impression in people's mind. If Struff's won, probably the storyline would have been bigger, probably than maybe people who, let's say, didn't watch it and just recognize it as an Alcaraz final win against Struff. I don't know if you got what
Yeah,
what I'm trying to explain. So probably this
it's an
has
interesting
not
argument.
left, a big memory in some people's mind, like, for example, some other matches.
Maybe. Anyhow, yeah, Sinner Medvedev, as you sort of hinted at already, it was 0-6 going into Beijing. And it's not like there weren't any sort of positive takeaways for Sinner. There was that first set in Rotterdam he won. There was the Nito ATP Finals match, which was super close. But at the same time, he was just coming off Miami, right? And that was like probably the biggest disappointment we've had so far with Sinner Medvedev, because that was the one where we were all like, okay, Sinner defeated Alcaraz, be it, some cramps, but still defeated Alcaraz. He goes into the Medvedev match. You feel like it's basically a 50-50. And then he comes out onto the court there and he like looks very uncomfortable doing, presenting any variety. He plays the drop shot like 9 times, loses all 9 points, I believe. Basically looks like he's hitting the drop shot for the first time in his life. So was there any optimism, to have for in you going into this Sinner Medvedev matchup from the side of Sinner, of course, because I think everyone was like, besides Medvedev fans, was like sort of hoping that maybe this is finally where we get at least a close match, at least a good battle. And I think, especially as he had just beaten Alcaraz again, right? So it was pretty similar to the Miami match, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. Of course, in Miami, expectations was quite high, because even considering the Rotterdam match, yeah, still there was not the feeling that Sinner was close to win that one, but we were seeing that Sinner was able to trouble Medvedev at least for some parts of the match. So given that the Sunshine Double, I'm not only considering the Alcaraz match, but whole Sunshine Double, Sinner was playing super well, did reach semifinals in both, lost one against Alcaraz and beat Alcaraz in the other one. There was that good match over Fritz. The Miami campaign was incredible because there was also the performance he put against Rublev was one of probably one of the best performances of the year. Another he was literally flying in Miami, won all the matches in straight sets before that Alcaraz semifinal. Definitely in that one, probably in the end, there was also, some the difference between, let's say, a most difficult path, like, the one Sinner had, and, Sinner's draw in Miami was, Medvedev's draw in Miami was not the most difficult one. And so that also can have played a role in a matchup which was already quite lopsided, and the difference in terms of physical condition in the end played a good role, because of course the matches between Sinner and Medvedev are always have a great physical part which play a good role in those matches. Coming in Beijing, well, let's say that first of all, Medvedev still have played at, I would say, a good level all year, but was not the Medvedev who was winning 25 out of 26 matches, something like that, reaching winning back-to-back title, and then reaching the final in Indian Wells and winning in Miami, and then coming into the clay with confidence and winning in Rome. It was still a good Medvedev, but not the one we saw in the first half of the season. Even if I would mention that Medvedev was coming from a great performance, because the semi-final match he played against Zverev, was a great one from him quality-wise. Was serving very good. There were some hopes in Sinner, but it was that kind of match in which you, at least my memory is that I was struggling to have a clear idea of what was going to happen, because I was quite confident that would have been better than Miami. But there still was that question mark, and I wasn't fully able to answer to the question mark, even if having beaten Alcaraz, let's say, more comfortably than what was in Miami, was giving me a better hope, talking about a potentially close battle between the two.
Yeah, and I guess another reason why I actually was advocating for this match to be on there is that I feel out of these three later in the year, this is probably the one where Sinner had to improvise the most, and the one where he really goes all out when it comes to serve and volleying out wide, closing down the net, the sort of things that we've seen. Well, some players able to pull off against Medvedev, especially Alcaraz at Wimbledon, but at that point also at Indian Wells, of course, where it was just like a 90% tactic for him. The thing is that for Alcaraz, these things come very easy, right? Exposing the defensive positioning of Medvedev, it just comes super easy for him. Whereas for Sinner, it's not exactly natural. He sort of emerged as a player who stands on the baseline, blasts the shot, and wins the point like this. And if the violent acceleration is not enough, then he might run into some trouble. And well, the main thing for me in Beijing was that he was actually just so persistent. And actually, this is a nice segue as well into this pretty famous point, but one that actually is a little forgotten now. And I guess that's natural, because if you lose a point like this and then you lose a set, then we remember it until the end of time. Whereas if you lose a point like this and you win a set, it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, you could have won it earlier, but well, you still won it. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there was this smash at 4-3, which was a breakpoint for Medvedev, for Sinner. Sorry, I think he had 2 of them in that game. This was definitely the one at 40-30.
Yeah, I definitely remember.
Well, 30-40 from Medvedev's perspective, from the server's perspective. And basically, there's like a huge long point. You already see some sort of change of attitude in Sinner. He blasts a backhand cross court. He sees Medvedev will be on the back foot, so he follows it up into the net. He has a pretty easy smash, and he misses it. I guess, if you're looking at Sinner this match and as a whole, you know that he's not fully comfortable going to the net, playing drop shots as well, which I think we'll talk about later. And then you actually realize that because he has to make these tactical changes in order to beat Medvedev, because he has to step out of his comfort zone, play something he's not fully adept in, he sort of needs to persist even if a thing like that happens. I mean, even if a poor smash happens to him, he just needs to keep going. And I guess that's one thing that he did exceptionally well in this match, right?
Yeah, and that's, of course, one of the things that overall gives me, good feelings about Sinner also going on in his career, because he is that kind of player who still tends to to persist in what he's doing and believes in what he's doing, even if he's not having 100% of success. Other players could have been a little bit probably frightened about what happened, maybe taking a step back. Sinner kept going and and did well, in my opinion. There were, of course, some mistakes, but overall, in my opinion, he was even doing what he had to do in a quite good way, let's say, especially when he was serving. He really had to face only one break point in that match, if I'm not wrong.
First set somewhere early,
in
right?
the first set was at the beginning. Was at the beginning, I remember.
One of the first few games.
Yeah, and after that, he hasn't even faced a single break point, and that, in my opinion, was also important. Or maybe in giving him the confidence to keep going, because he was not risking talking about the score. At least when you face a break point, even if he at times he managed to do that quite well, even in some pressure points. I remember even in the 2 tie breaks. And yeah, it was definitely important for him to not be scared if there was one missed volley or that smash. It was that one the way, and he kept going. And in the end, even if he didn't break Medvedev, but definitely, even if it was 7-6, 7-6, the one who had the more chances to score a break, it was Sinner. So all the signs were positive, even during the match, for him.
Yeah, I'm watching these 11-minute highlights on the I guess ATP Tour, or is it Tennis TV YouTube channel. There's just a few points from the first set tiebreak, since this is where we are more or less right now in the match. And basically, I think there's this 1 point for 4-0, or is it for 5-0? I think it is for 5-0, yeah, which is just beautiful from Sinner, as he just has this backhand +1 that he can crack cross court and follows it up to the net, and there's just nothing that Medvedev can do. It's a pretty good backhand volley technique as well, maybe a little similar to what he hit very recently against Djokovic at the ATP finals, or was it Davis Cup? Oh, anyway, definitely, showing that again, that mentality and that improvement.
Yeah,
he actually loses.
We've had some good signs of it lately. I don't know if you remember when he won that break point 4-game all in the third set against Rune at the ATP.
Oh, that was the one that I was thinking of. Yes, that was the one that I was thinking of. Not against Djokovic, but against Rune. Yes.
Yeah, that was a great example. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. I remember it was like ATP finals, but I couldn't point the match. Definitely late in the fair. Yeah, it was against Rune, right? One of the best backhand volleys of the year, maybe even. And he loses here like a spectacular point at 6-1, but of course at that point it doesn't really matter. He has dominated the tiebreak and he wins the 7-2 point as well. This time just, can stay glued to the baseline and just blasts a few shots at Medvedev and eventually gets an error. So yeah, I mean, he takes the first set, and suddenly we believe that we have a match on our hands. As you said, in the second set, there's not actually, like in terms of break points, there's not all that much happening. Both guys are playing at an exceptionally high level, absolutely. Medvedev cracks a few shots himself. I mean, he really responds to the pressure that Sinner gives him as well. I think there's like third game of the second set, Sinner has a few break points, but they don't get taken. So soon enough, we will be arriving in another tiebreak, right?
Yeah, another tiebreak, which we remember also because of the last points, because I clearly remember very well Sinner 5-2 up, wins a spectacular point to go 6-2 up, and then right after closes the match with a great forehand return. And wins the match. So we're thinking basically about two tiebreaks that didn't really have all that many doubt talking about who was going to win the two tiebreaks, because they were easily won by Sinner. But yeah, clearly the main thing about this match, it was for sure the fact that Sinner was able to hurt Medvedev in that way, coming often to the net, serve and volleying, using some drop shots, but differently that when it was in Miami, like a way to escape from the rally. Even when he was playing here drop shot, it was a bit different tactically, because it was looking more like a tactical choice, making Medvedev run forward and just surprise him, and of course not let him basically live in his comfort zone throughout the whole match. And this has also probably had an impact in the overall matchup, because then that we had the other two matches in Vienna and the ATP finals, which were even different, because there Sinner still came to the net at times, used the variety when he needed to, but it was less evident because he was also winning some points and rally from the baseline. I remember that third set in Turin, in which he was basically blasting every shot and winning every baseline rally in the end. And I'm sure that the Beijing match is an important. I don't want to say sliding doors, because it's still early. We are going to have, I think, especially on the hard court, when these two players are, among the very top at the game, we are still going to have many matches. But of course, the matchup is now looking very, very different than from what it was, let's say, middle of the year, with that 6-0. So for sure, Beijing match is important also in the story of this rivalry, because having Sinner the chance of doing what he did tactically, and actually benefiting from that, despite a couple of mistakes which can happen. You can also make a mistake from the baseline, so it's it's right for him to it was right for him to keep going, and it was, in my opinion, very, very important for him, and probably even for the rest of the season. When you gain confidence from a match like that, then you can also bring that in, not only in this matchup, but even in next matches, and changing even mentality a little bit.
Yeah, that's the birthplace of post-puke Sinner, this event, right? And he's been spectacular
Yeah.
since. Maybe the best player in the world since, maybe the second best. That's like a matter of opinion. Of course, that only since Beijing, so it's not a huge sample. I'm not saying this will hold up until the Australian Open. Who knows? But certainly he has been in that conversation since this run, since this title, since these two Alcaraz-Medvedev matches. Yeah, I'm just I was scrolling through the second set tiebreak. Even the first point is pretty spectacular. Medvedev lobs Sinner. They get back into the point, and then he actually eventually wins this with a very well hidden drop shot. He has Medvedev on the back foot, of course, but would just be very normal for Sinner to hit a big forehand here. Medvedev, you can see already, is moving to his backhand corner. Like, he has definitely made the decision that Sinner will be hitting there. He has guessed already, whereas Sinner just comes up with this great forehand dropper in the other direction. As we mentioned earlier, in Miami, he actually didn't win a single point on which he played a drop shot, which was, well, I mean, 9 is, I guess, not that huge of a sample size, but it still tells you something that, well, neither of these was a winner. Neither of these was a shot that Medvedev was, struggling with enough in order to, let's say, put it into the net, or maybe just to give Sinner an easy put away. So this was a huge change up. And again, maybe if he didn't sometimes look fully comfortable, maybe if sometimes they weren't perfect, he still had to throw them in sometimes. Of course, Medvedev playing most of the time 3 meters behind the baseline. That's a tactic you want to be going for. But just like with the serve and volleying out wide, which sometimes for a player with good touch on the first volley, it seems like a 90% tactic, you still need to be able to execute it at a very high level in order to beat Medvedev. And then, of course, you're quite right about the two spectacular points that Sinner wins. 5-2, it's this forehand pass on the run, and 6-2, the massive return. And 5-2, I mean, rewatching this tiebreak now, you still sort of feel like, okay, so Medvedev wins the next 2 points, there's still a chance for him in this match, right? I mean, a tiebreak is not done at 5-2 if you're the guy serving. If the guy who has the 2 points is serving, then the tiebreak is not done yet. Whereas, Sinner just closes down the door on Medvedev instantly, and especially with that massive forehand return, of course, and it just sort of clips the very corner of the court. The movement in this tiebreak from Sinner is quite spectacular too. The shots he's picking up, just running side to side as well, because there's a couple of points that he is forced to do some running on as well. And yeah, I think what you said about Vienna and ATP finals was very true. And actually, one of the reasons why I was pushing for this one to be included is that I feel like this is the one where we saw the most sort of initiative, the most invention from Sinner. Whereas the next ones, he was sort of already so confident and maybe playing even better than before. That yeah, apparently he was able to also outplay Medvedev off the ground quite a lot. He still had the ability to throw in the unconventional stuff, which is good. That's how you should use it. I mean, as a player like him, to have that ability, have it in your toolbox, but not necessarily have to go for it all the time. This isn't ideal when you're playing someone like that, and an opponent you don't like, and you sort of have to go for these tactics, even though you don't fully like them. It's not your most natural play. But well, he was 0-6 in this matchup. He had to try something, and I guess that's also an
Yeah,
inspiration.
and
That,
what you said
well,
about
he did.
the
Hmm.
point in the tiebreak, which Sinner
Yeah.
won with the drop shot, and also considering the matches which came next, in which we saw that Sinner was even winning quite a good number of points from the baseline, basically, in, let's say, classic rally, from the baseline, which you would expect in this matchup. But I'm also talking about Medvedev when he needs to defend the court. It becomes even it becomes more difficult if you actually are not anymore 100% sure, or where you have to anticipate and where you have to go, because you now have some doubt that Sinner can make a drop shot, or can use his angles better, because we could have we could also analyze also the angle chosen from his baseline shot, in Vienna, for example, comparing it to Rotterdam. And for sure, you lose a bit of confidence, and it's also more difficult to anticipate the decision your opponent is going to make, because you are not anymore that 100% sure, or about what you're going to do. And for example, Medvedev won that set in Turin, but we saw that in Turin he went way more aggressive than when he was in the other matches played against Sinner in the year. So this match maybe also pushed Medvedev to try something different, because in Turin he did it. Then it hasn't pained in the long term because he lost the match, but he for especially the second set he was the aggressive player.
Yeah, and I guess one more thing that I wanted to mention, and I was just Googling that and I started reading an article, which is kind of shocking to me, because I wanted to mention that the Sinner team is actually pretty likely to, well, Sinner and his team, let's put it this way, is actually, well, maybe even 3 awards by the ATP can be won by Sinner and his team. But let's not talk about sportsmanship. But like most improved player of the year, Sinner is definitely up there as a contender thanks to performances like this. And as I was looking for a list of the awards, of the nominees, I bumped into this article on Sports Illustrated, which is like sort of handing out their awards, and it's by John Wertheim. And the Coach of the Year category does not even mention Darren Cahill. And that's shocking to me. Of course, he has been nominated by the ATP, and it's going to be voted on by fellow ATP coaches. And I think Darren Cahill and Simone Vanozzi, who are sort of like a double nomination for Sinner, thanks to matches like this, and maybe especially the match
Sure.
here, I mean, Sinner,
I think
Medvedev, and also the ones against Djokovic, like they're huge front runners, I think, for this.
All my all the respect to the others, but I think that this one is even clearer, in my opinion, than the most improved. Talking about who should win that, because I know that people can argue about everything, can argue about who was the world number one, who won the most slams, but talking about purely the work made by the coaches, the work put in also tactically and mentally,
I think he was really important for me for my how I also grow as a player, because I feel like he gave me a lot of confidence in one way. Obviously, he gave something new to the team. Mostly, I think the combination with him and with Simone and with all the team is really, really nice. And I think this is one of my key. I think every team has his own kind of stability. I have mine, and I think we have worked really, really well.
And even the serve. Let's also talk about the serve, which has improved a lot as a shot for Sinner. He went. I know that the Turin court are quite fast, and it's difficult to break overall. But he went through 4 matches against top tier opponents while going break. Being broken only twice. And then overall I remember, for example, the first set tiebreak in Vienna played against Medvedev. He won that tiebreak thanks to the serve, and that has been a maximal change. And I think one of the main thing that, in my opinion, let him then ending the year with that many wins against top 5, because in the end he scored 10 of this year, especially in the latest part, of course. And I think this is also these are all reasons in which, in my opinion, there's little doubt regarding who should win this award. Most improved, I don't know, because it also depends on how you look at. For sure, that's been a great improvement, but in my opinion, you can even think that I don't know, Sinner still, for example, entered the top 10 earlier in his career. He still was, knocking on that door. Yeah, that it's still a great improver to enter, to enter the door, to open it. But you can even argue that maybe most improved doesn't necessarily mean that. But coach of the year, in my opinion, is 100% clear.
Yeah, for me as well. And it's actually very good that you mentioned the serve. I forgot to do that. But this is another thing that really helps you in a matchup like this. If you're like let's say previously one-dimensional baseline attacker, and you're struggling to hit through someone's defenses, essentially, because it really is that simple, like what was happening in the Sinner-Medvedev matchup before Beijing. 3 points on serve are, again, really, really important. And we I guess we said that there was just one breakpoint for Medvedev the whole match, but again, like, Sinner was just blitzing through his service games, and yeah, that's another part where we really see clear improvement, and where we also see the impact of a coach, right? Because it can be hard for us to actually note down, what did that coach do in order to improve a certain player's game.
Think about that infamous game against Djokovic in the Davis Cup. Yeah, Djokovic was getting tense, but Sinner saves one of these match points, win an unreturned serve, and then hits 2 other unreturned serve at deuce and advantage for advantage Sinner. He gets another one, and then 30-40. Yeah, Djokovic could have played better that passing shot, but still Sinner hits a good first serve, which let him attack and go to the net. The serve, it's been, and there, of course, you see the impact the coach has made, because it's clear.
Yeah, and so in the tactical awareness, in the just in decreased one-dimensionality of Sinner's game. So yeah, for me it's also super clear. Do we have anything else really? I think we talked about this match pretty comprehensively. There's definitely the storyline aspect, but also just the fact that it was of exceptionally high quality. And again, I think Vienna was as well. I think the ATP finals probably is third best for me. When it comes to the Sinner-Medvedev matches in 2023. This easily could have been the Vienna final, but we ended up going for Beijing, as I just think the storyline, the sort of freshness that Sinner had to approach this matchup with.
Yeah, let's say that
it was
a good one, also because you didn't have like in the other matches, and like in normal matches, because most of the matches this happens, and here it didn't happen. You didn't have some patches of the match in which one player looks struggling and the other one is winning games.
The tie breaks
like,
only, I
like
guess,
for example, yes,
They were the
like
only
for example
dominant
in
moment,
Vienna,
yeah.
Sinner wins that exceptional first
Yeah.
set, and then Medvedev gets 2 breaks in the second, and yeah,
That's right. There's no lulls. I mean, the match just keeps you entertained from
yeah.
start to finish. I believe I was doing commentary on it for Talking Tennis. I do not remember with whom. I believe I was doing commentary on it for Talking Tennis. I do not remember with whom. Not remember with whom. But I remember definitely just, you're just sitting down and every single game felt important, even though in the second set they were all pretty fast and they were easy service holds. But you still felt like, if something happens in this game, I mean, it's going to be absolutely vital, and probably the player will lose a set.
Yeah,
So
also the
yeah,
storyline
it is
is
an
not
argument, yeah.
something that matter, because even if you have only fast holds, but if the quality is good, if some points are a bit spectacular, then you have what you need to have to stuck watching a tennis match. So yeah, I feel like it was generally a good final, and in a year in which, in my opinion, as I was talking to John before, the final months of the year helped us to having some matches to get excited about, because before probably was a bit of a disappointing season. There were some very good matches, but talking
Maybe it's
about
just recency bias, we remember the matches that happened most recently the best, and maybe
yeah,
that's
you're
just
right,
it.
but of course, at least if you are talking about the big stages, when you're thinking
Yeah.
about the matches played at the big stages, let's say Grand Slams from semifinals onwards,
Yeah.
500 finals, Masters semis and finals. If you think about that, for sure, the last part of the year had more drama and material, and even, let's say, probably variety in terms of the player, also because you have had something between a part of the year which Djokovic and Alcaraz had great stuff, Wimbledon, Cincinnati, and then there's been, for example, Medvedev and Sinner, and then it becomes Djokovic. I feel like for sure the recency helps, but I feel like the Medvedev Sinner is also one of these interesting matchups, regardless of that kind of tennis one's prefer, because it's interesting to see how the players are approaching the match and what they are trying to do in order to to get past the rival, because now we kind of have understood that for both it's a bit uncomfortable. For Medvedev, talking about lately, so for example, the next one will be interesting, probably watching what Medvedev will do in order to try to invert the tendency.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good note to finish on as well. We've been chatting about this match for like 40 minutes now. I think it's going to be more about in line with the other episodes. And I'm glad that this is on the list. I'm glad that I was able to push it to and actually force John to include it, sort of. I mean, you guys actually forced him to include it, because he could have voted it out, but
let's say that you
preferred
forced
it
to
over.
include that in the poll.
Yeah.
And then people forced it to be mentioned,
So it
because
was
they
really
voted
like a
for it.
chained effort, and it shouldn't have been. It should have been more clear. Yeah, keep tuning into these episodes, and it was fun to chat about this one with Mario. Definitely a match where the storyline takes a long part of the discussion, probably longer than it will for the other videos. But again, I don't really feel like it's a substitute for quality. These things definitely went hand in hand here. So a very good inclusion by my book for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's one of these matches which I can, probably after this one I can maybe even be okay when I meet and okay, let's watch it again. This kind of match. So it was okay and fine for me to talk about it.
Yeah. Again, keep tuning into the other reviews, or however you want to call it, analysis of the matches of the year, the videos dedicated to the best matches of the year. And that's it from us for today. Thank you.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.